So we know the side on which Trump falls when it comes to this, and many people saying that it marks a watershed moment in a very key principle in US democracy and indeed most democracies around the rule of your law and the freedom from interference from the top when it comes to prosecuting without view of people's personal enmities or alliances. And so I think it's a really, really massive moment.
Well, let's now turn to another really big story that's happening in America. I think this is incredibly important. I mean, look, there's so much happening in America, but I do think this has got big consequences. And this is the ex-FBI director, James Comey, has been charged with the obstruction of justice and making a false statement to Congress. Now, Comey was fired months into Donald Trump's first presidency in the middle of an investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 general election. Let's listen to James Comey speaking with Jane and Fee on Times Radio last year, and he speaks to them about the lasting influence of Trump on the US.
Well, it will ebb very slowly. That's the nature of the unwinding of a cult. The demagogue doesn't release his hold all at once. It will have to slowly leak away, and he'll still have significant influence, but at 90, he'll be standing in his bathrobe on the lawn at Mar-a-Lago shouting at cars, and some people will still listen to him, but it will slowly ebb away. But it'll be a decade before the Republican Party can decide what its future is.
Let's see about that. I mean, it's also worth saying that even though the Republicans are really coming hard after Comey, lots of Democrats were really cross with him as well, because he did launch the investigation into those emails and Hillary Clinton, all the chants of lock her up. So, he wasn't sort of, being favourable to the Democrats. But obviously this big news about his indictment, but James Comey has come out swinging. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right. But I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial.
Fighting talk there from James Comey. Well, let's now catch up with our Washington correspondent at the Times newspaper, Lara Spirit. Hello, Lara.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. It's so nice to speak to you. Are you enjoying your time out in Washington? What a time to be out there.
Yeah, it's fascinating and very fast moving, as I'm sure we'll discuss.
So look, how big is the story in America? How has it landed in America, this story?
I mean, it's absolutely enormous, even if some were saying that this was the inevitable direction of travel. Of course, we had in recent days Trump challenging Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, over the fact that there hadn't been action taken decisively on this count. He's been very open about wanting to see action Trump on James Comey. And I think the easiest way to describe this is just to really set out the sequence of events here. So he pushed out the prosecutor who had declined and made it clear that didn't want to go through with this case. He then replaced that prosecutor with an interim case with an ally, Lindsay Halligan, who was only appointed by Trump a few days ago. And now we see this. And Trump extremely open on Truth Social, his social media platform, about his contentedness with what has happened. He calls Comey a dirty cop. He's called him a destroyer of lives, and he said justice in America. So we know the side on which Trump falls when it comes to this, and many people saying that it marks a watershed moment in a very key principle in US democracy and indeed most democracies around the rule of your law and the freedom from interference from the top when it comes to prosecuting without view of people's personal enmities or alliances. And so I think it's a really, really massive moment.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, I know lots of people say, well, look, every day is a big day in American politics, but you're right. This feels like, we might look back at, in terms of what comes after this. Is this going to be a kind of trajectory of behaviour? Because as I said in my introduction, James Comey is not somebody who's loved on the Democrat side either, right? Because people were really cross with him about doing that investigation into Hillary Clinton. And Trump has called him some sort of agent for the Democrats. But that's not an accurate charge.
No, and I mean, he has been open about criticism of Trump, as you just heard in that clip there with from the Times Radio interview that he did. But like you say, he's not a partisan. But he has his role in American politics has certainly become more politicized when Republicans and indeed those close to Trump have talked about it, and they do clearly see him as somebody who was unfair towards President Trump, and Trump particularly clearly feels that too. And I think it is a significant moment. I think it is important also to say that this hasn't come out of nowhere. There have been a number of steps that the Trump administration has taken in recent months that have edged towards this position on the question of justice. Things like revoking Secret Service protection or security clearances for people who aren't his allies, or issuing executive orders that have punished certain law firms. We've also seen some lawyers who've been fired after working on some of those cases against Trump, or those who had supported him, as well as, of course, big pardons for those who are on his side. So certainly this has not come out of nowhere, but I do think it's really important to mark it as a very significant moment when it comes to the direction the Justice Department is moving in, and also because we're looking at possible developments in the coming days in other cases, things like John Bolton. We may see charges on the former National Security Advisor in the coming days. We've also seen that we read in the New York Times that Trump is looking at going after the Open Society Foundation, George Soros's Open Society Foundation. So we are seeing a more active legal voice from the Trump administration in terms of what they are doing. And I think that's something that's definitely worth watching closely.
And final question to you, James Comey, in that clip that we heard, very defiant, saying, bring it on, let's have a trial. I'm confident in the justice system. I am innocent. I mean, do you feel he should be that confident, or is it a cut to him in an orange jumpsuit somewhere?
Well, it's very hard to say. Some people are surprised that this got past a grand jury in the first place. Of course, those are much more private and secretive. It's hard to discern exactly what happens there. But I think when it comes to being in front of a judge and jury, it seems to be that many former and actually current prosecutors think that case will be quite difficult to succeed. Obviously, he does face up to 5 years of prison if he is found to be guilty. But I think at the moment, there's the sense that this will be a very difficult, or indeed an uphill struggle for the Trump administration, for the prosecutor to succeed in.
Okay, well, Lara, I totally agree with you. I think this is a really, really important moment, and what follows from this could have some quite big consequences. Thank you so much for your time. Great to catch up with you. That's Washington correspondent at The Times, Lara Spirit.